as the IT manager. And I knew I only needed to tell people who would get it. And so I told
say it
no
again,
one.
say it again to somebody listening.
I could only tell people who would get it, who would understand. And so I told no one. But the strangest thing is that when I looked on a calendar, December 31st of that year, for me, it was the end of a pay period. It was the end of a week. It was a Friday. It was the end of the week. It was the end of the year, and it was the end of a decade. And so I knew God was speaking to me. I knew that this was the move I was supposed to make. Of course, I was a little afraid, but I did it anyway. I did it. I jumped out. And let me tell you something, what was so phenomenal. Because I made that faith move, I put my last day in for December 31st. And this is how I know this is how, I never say I want to make, my thing that I developed is that I never make a move based on money. Yes. I gave my resignation on December 31st, told my boss that my last day was December 31st. She told me I was about to give you, ask you if you wanted to take on more responsibilities because someone had left. And she said I was going to give you a $12,000 increase. That wasn't enough to keep me. But that month, I got a client, and the client said, they were saying, listen, we need to bring some high profilers out. We're doing this run for kids, and we need to bring some high profilers out. We need your help. You were recommended to us. What can you do for us? And let me tell you, I did not know our FLOTUS. I knew nothing about her. I did not know Michelle Obama, but I wrote an email to her office. I said, listen, I know you're doing this campaign for kids and trying to get the kids healthy. Listen, I have a nonprofit that I'm representing, and we're having XYZ event, and I want to know, can you come out? 2 days later, I got a response and said, the First Lady and the President will be.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our SistaNistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite SistaNistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are. Our sisterhood here is real, filled with peace, wisdom, hope, love, light, and laughter. You know, the kind you can feel, the kind of encouragement that confirms we can do anything because we have, and the kind of inspiration that proves we can be even greater. This is our world, where if you ain't a Black woman, you may want to be one, or definitely get to know one. It's a Black women's world, and we welcome our SistaNista lovers too. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Well, hello, everybody. I am TracyMac, your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and host of Black Women's World Podcast. Jill Morris, let me tell you something. Jill Morris is with me today, and we're just going to jump right into conversation because Jill is a good pro. I ain't going to say an old pro for several reasons, but she is a pro at what she does in so many ways. But I have got to read her bio because when it was sent to me, I was just so impressed with her. I was impressed with Jill day one when she walked in the building or walked into the room. You know how when some people first walk into the room, you got to kind of check them out, you know, what they're about. And some people walk into a room and you lean in. Jill had a sister leaning in because of her presence and her decorum. But I want to tell you, Jill Morris, the savvy servant,
She is a purposepreneur. That caught me. That caught me already.
Mhm.
With a moral compass of over 25 years of experience as a public relations practitioner in the public sector. Jill has managed communication projects from every aspect of the nonprofit industry, from grassroots organizations and professional associations to higher education and the federal government. Jill's multifaceted experience has positioned her as an expert, and I promise you, she's an expert in cause-related marketing and nonprofit development. In her role as principal of the Savvy Servant LLC, Jill provides nonprofit business consulting for servant leaders, baby, and visionaries who are on missions to change communities and transform lives. I am not only just impressed with those words, but I am impressed because every word in here I know to be so. Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast. My biz sis, Jill Morris.
Thank you. Thank you, TracyMac, my business, my SistaNista.
Yes, how are you today? I'm so glad to have you here. It took us a minute to get our schedules to sync. But I am so glad that God has allowed us to be here together today. How are you today, Jill?
I'm good. I'm good. It's February, so it's all about heart health for me. I'm not wearing red today, but yes, I'm good. I'm good.
Good. You good. So when I think about the Savvy Servant, I love the name, and even going back to, maybe we can touch a little bit on how we met.
Okay.
As I said, I was impressed with your person, the spirit you exude from day one. And I think I told you that, but if I didn't tell you then, I know I've said it because it's just the truth. But what are you doing? What's going on in the world when we say Savvy Servant and nonprofits? So many different things come to mind. Tell the Black Women's World Podcast, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, what that means from your perspective and scope of work and expertise.
Okay, so a savvy servant. So we live in a world where, the way I was brought up is you give out of nothing. You give everything you have, even when you don't have anything to give. And, you give to depletion. And so when I think about giving, of course, I think of it in a way from the Word of God, where you are a cheerful giver. And so a savvy servant is one who gives from a full cup, who gives out of their abundance. And that's what a savvy servant is to me. So, yeah.
Wow, I love that you said several things. We're going to unpack how I was brought up. And we're going to touch on that because we have so much in common with our upbringing, including our love for music. But how you were brought up, and something you said that I think resonates with Black women and those of us who find ourselves to be servant leaders, is that we give even when we don't have. Mm-hmm. But I love that you said the savvy servant gives out of their overflow, their abundance.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying that, I think it was even my mom was the first person I heard say it. I don't know if she coined it, was that you give out of your saucer, not your cup. And that came to mind when you said that. But talk about that, going from the upbringing of giving when you don't even have to savvy servant, because that's not a quick transition.
Right. Well, I think for me, it comes from, first of all, I was brought up in the Black church, in a Pentecostal church. And, we were taught that, we had to, of course, give offerings, give tithes. And for a long time, when I became an adult, I didn't believe in the tithe. I didn't believe in tithing. It just, because the way I was taught it. And so it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I learned what tithing was. And I'm like, what? First of all, in the Black church, I didn't even think we can have money. Let me just be clear. I didn't think we could have money. And if we were going to get any money, it all belonged to the church. And so when I got older, in my 30s, when I started to tithe, and I said, well, there's a principle in this thing that we can have giving, we can live in an overflow, we can live out of abundance. And at that point, that's where I started to say, okay, it's more than me, it's more than just wealth. It's about me giving back. I never wanted to be, of course, I was pushed into business, but I never wanted to be that business woman that was financially driven. I was always mission driven. And I said, okay, if I'm not going to have a nonprofit, I can at least give what I know. I can give knowledge. But that's been my drive, is that I am definitely, I'm a socialpreneur. That's what I call myself, a purposepreneur, socialpreneur. But that's how I give. I give from a place of like abundance. If I don't have to give, whether it's time, I'm not guilty about it. I accept it. But that's how I live my life. Just from a place of abundance and giving from abundance.
Jill, now let me tell you, you got me leaning in like you did day one. It's your MO. You got me leaning in because you said a whole lot. And I don't want to make this so much as a spiritual or church or religious conversation, but what you grow out of, or should I say what you mature into, has a lot to do with your foundation. So with that foundation, when you talk about giving and giving when you don't have, and having that mindset, because I too had it, that holiness equated poverty. In order for you to be holy, you had to be poor.
Exactly.
You couldn't have anything. I know what it took for my mindset to change. As a matter of fact, my mindset did not do a complete overhaul until 2014. And I was at a conference and some things were done. But when I think about everything you just said, and being the savvy servant, so being the one to give out of abundance, were there any, or was there a particular situation or a mark in time when that mind shift happened for you as a savvy servant, setting up nonprofits, which churches are nonprofits, different organizations to give to people? What transpired, or the situation, singular or plural, that happened in your life to start the shift, and when you noticed, I got this thing?
Okay, so the first part happened when I did some research in grad school, and that was I guess about 2002 maybe. I did some research on church and money in grad school, because I have a master's degree in nonprofit development. But we were studying community-based and faith-based organizations, because the church, as you said, is a nonprofit. And that really opened me up. But then I got some really good teaching, some really good spiritual teaching from my, I like to say, my pastor in my grown-up days. So I got some really good teaching. I love Dr. Tony Evans. So I got some spiritual teaching, and he taught it in a way where I understood it as a principle. And so once you understand the principle of giving, once you, and this is funny because it's going into a whole nother subject as far as wealth building. But once you understand the principle of giving, it's a game changer. And I think that's one of the things that's missing in our community. We don't understand the principle of giving. The sow reap principle, everything you sow, you reap. And so, so that's when it was. That was a game changer, is when I learned the real biblical teaching of giving and of tithing.
Wow. So you mentioned your degree field and being in the area of nonprofit. When we talk about giving, and we talk about being the savvy servant and giving out of the overflow, the transition between you getting your degree and actually starting a company, a whole company, from public relations and nonprofit, talk about that transition, or what made you choose that particular degree field? Was it because of your church influence? What was that about?
Wow. So I actually, when I got my bachelor's, I went and took a job I got my bachelor's in public relations. So I took a job with the late Honorable Eunice Kennedy Shriver at the Kennedy Foundation. And so that was my first, I was supposed to be her press secretary, ended up being her special assistant. And when I started working for her, when I tell you, it changed my life. Of course, you know, they have they're the founders of the Kennedy Foundation. So anything has to do with
Jill. Let's, because people are listening from all over the world. I don't know if they know the connection of the Shrivers and the Kennedys. Can you just give a little history about that so they can understand the significance of this connection you had straight out the gate?
Okay, so so Eunice Kennedy Shriver is the sister to the Kennedy clan, to the brothers, to Ted, John, Robert. She's their sister, and so she created and of course, you know, Kennedy was a president, right. So she created the foundation, the Kennedy Foundation, for her family. So she was the founder of it, and then, but also she and her husband founded the Special Olympics. So one side of the building was the Kennedy Foundation, the other side was the Special Olympics. I went to work for her, and I ended up being her special assistant. And I was supposed to be doing public relations, and I was in this nonprofit world that I was kind of placed in, and I mean, I was amazed. And so she basically said, you know, I'm about to retire. What do you want to do? She said, I think you should go into the federal government. She made one phone call. I got into the federal government. At that point, I decided, let me go get my master's in nonprofit management. I was sold. I spent 10 years in the federal government. And then in 2010, I had an epiphany. I turned 40. I was deployed in, well, the part of my job in the federal government, anytime there's any catastrophe in the world, they would place me wherever that, in the US, wherever that catastrophe was, or wherever, wherever our people from the US were coming in, whatever airport they were coming in, they placed me at that port so that I can account for all of the US citizens coming back. Because wherever there's a catastrophe in the world, we can bring our citizens home for free at no cost. Well, there was a horrible earthquake in Haiti. And so they deployed me to Florida and to make sure our citizens were coming in. I was accounting for them. I was working for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I had an epiphany. I was spending my 40th birthday there. And it was just like, I heard the voice of God say, you need to now jump out on your own. Start your own public relations in the nonprofit industry, and I got you. And that's what I did.
Now, Jill, were there ever any whispers before this epiphany? Were there ever any signs? Was this just, oh?
I was always, because I had the skill to do public relations, I was always doing some type of side hustle in it. But I knew I had to, once I was deployed and I saw the people coming in, I'm gonna tell you what really did it. So I don't know if you remember, there was this big issue with this group of Caucasians who were like out in the Midwest. They were going down and getting our babies, and they were bringing out our Black babies. They were bringing, so that got me, because I'm like, okay, this is an issue. Well, anyway, it was my job to protect them. So even though I didn't agree with what they did, so they came in and the media was there waiting for them. And I said, no, I got to protect these people. And I stood in front of the media and I basically shadowed them, and they were able to, they were walking in with our Black babies. They were walking in and they got past the media. And at that point, not to toot my own horn, but I said, okay, you're good. Because they went straight past the media, and the media didn't get them. And so by the end of that year, that was in January, by the end of that year, I got the revelation, like, it's time to go out on your own. And that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. When I say I jumped out by faith, I jumped out by faith.
So yeah. You didn't have, okay, hold on, this is getting good to me. Okay, so you didn't, the prep, was there fear Were you financially prepared? What were your friends and family saying? And you know, we all got a story when we go into entrepreneurship. So I mean, and it can be hell and high water. But what was it
Yes,
like for
yes,
you, especially for someone listening who
yes.
may be having that epiphany or may have had some time toying with entrepreneurship or whatever their next move is? It may not be. What was that like? That move?
Okay. So I this is why it's so important to hang around the right people. So I was doing a side hustle, the PR thing, and I was introduced. I don't know if you know Lamar and Ronnie Tyler. They are the gurus of like Black love, and they have this big movement going on, blackandmarriedwithkids.com. So anyway, I was doing work with them, and they were always saying, Jill, you know, you need to just jump out on your own. You just need to jump out on your own. So when I came back from Florida, it was around August. And I remember Lamar telling me, he said, Jill, if you jump out there, he said, I got you. I'll help you get your website. And I was like, no, I'm not going to really do that. Like, I don't want to leave my good government job. In October, my boss decided that she was going to retire suddenly by the end of the year. And I was like, okay, that was one of my first clues that maybe God is opening up the doors for you. I was sitting at my desk, and I lie to you not, I heard like the voice of God saying, okay, you're getting ready to leave this job. December 31st is going to be your very last day. At that point, I went in faith mode. I secured 3 clients. I liquidated my, I think I had like $60,000 in savings. I liquidated my savings. I wrote a business plan, and I told no one. I told no one. Only people who knew were Lamar and Ronnie Tyler, because he had just left Fox 5 as the IT manager, and I knew I only needed to tell people who would get it. And so I told
say it
no
again,
one.
say it again to somebody listening.
I could only tell people who would get it, who would understand. And so I told no one. But the strangest thing is that when I looked on a calendar, December 31st of that year, for me, it was the end of a pay period. It was the end of a week. It was a Friday. It was the end of the week. It was the end of the year, and it was the end of a decade. And so I knew God was speaking to me. I knew that this was the move I was supposed to make. Of course, I was a little afraid, but I did it anyway. I did it. I jumped out. And let me tell you something, what was so phenomenal. Because I made that faith move, I put my last day in for December 31st. And this is how I know this is how I never say I want to make, my thing that I developed is that I never make a move based on money. Yes. I gave my resignation on December 31st, told my boss that my last day was December 31st. She told me I was about to give you, ask you if you wanted to take on more responsibilities because someone had left. And she said I was going to give you a $12,000 increase. That wasn't enough to keep me. But that month, I got a client, and the client said they were saying, listen, we need to bring some high profilers out. We're doing this run for kids, and we need to bring some high profilers out. We need your help. You were recommended to us. What can you do for us? And let me tell you, I did not know our FLOTUS. I knew nothing about her. I did not know Michelle Obama, but I wrote an email to her office. I said, listen, I know you're doing this campaign for kids and trying to get the kids healthy. Listen, I have a nonprofit that I'm representing, and we're having XYZ event, and I want to know, can you come out? 2 days later, I got a response and said, the first lady and the president will be, I think they were going to Martha's Vineyard or somewhere, Hawaii, for the holidays. They said, but she is so into this program, she wants to send out her Council on Women and Girls. That was a game changer for me. Once I got the White House behind my business, it exploded. I mean, when I started full time, I went into everything was on referral by that time. All my business started to be on referral. So I didn't even have to market my business for like 2 years. I had to do no marketing. So but in a nutshell, yes, I was afraid. I was afraid, but I did it anyway.
God, no, girl, you just blew me away. I mean, I love it. I love
Mm-hmm.
because so many people have different kinds of starts. And a lot of people will jump and they say, I didn't have anything. Some people will jump and they prepare for a long time. But you were one of these Black women who we cater to unapologetically, who had some money in the bank. Even though you didn't tell a lot of people, you told the people who mattered. You had the wherewithal to write the business plan. And you were boom, boom, boom. Pun intended, you were a woman on the move, because that's where we met.
Yes.
Woman on the move. And thank God for Sharon Campbell and rest in peace, our mentor, Miss Andrea Harris. But you came in moving. I mean, who comes out of, because I've been a federal employee, DOD employee, that steady paycheck, especially when you get over GS9 and 15s and you go, you know, when you get in that arena and you, especially if you're getting cost of living or you getting COLA if you overseas, or you getting BAH if you living over, you know, housing allowance. So that check can get a little fat, but more than fat, it's consistent. You're going to get it every 2 weeks. And for you to be able to jump padded, that's what I like to say, because some people jump without any padding. You were able to jump padding right into White House connections. Jill, that don't happen, Captain.
It don't. The grace of God, favor of God.
Yes. And then so you were able to make that connection. And I want you to talk as much about that as you choose. And then segue us into, was that the savvy servant, or was the savvy servant, was that the actual, okay, take us there. Take us from White House, forever FLOTUS, Michelle Obama. Take us, I'm listening, girl, here I go.
So that was J. Morris Public Relations. So 2011, flying high. 2011, I mean, I was getting clients after clients, and I never wanted to have the type of business where I had this big old office and this big old PR firm. I wanted to work outside of my home. I had bought my own home, and I wanted to work from my home. Flying high, was getting clients. Everything was wonderful. J. Morris Public Relations, they started dubbing me. And I think, I want to say, what's the girl from, what's the show? Oh my God. Kerry Washington show.
Scandal.
No. Olivia Pope. They started dubbing me the Olivia Pope of nonprofits. So
we have that in common. I had initially a lot of I don't know why they were coming to me, but I had pastors that had found themselves in sketchy situations. I was trying to be nice. And I was being called in to fix those things, either with their board of trustees or before it even got to their board, or even before it got to the church. And I was being called Olivia Pope. I took offense at first because I was like, but then I thought about it. She fixed it. And I came in and fixed it. And thank God for non-disclosure agreements, because we don't share those things. But go ahead. I didn't know we had that in common. And I still have to fix some things for some folks. But go ahead.
Because you're good at it too. You good. That's what you do. But anyway, so I that was J. Morris Public Relations. And 2011 was going well. 2012 was going well. And then 2013 hit. And I hit rock bottom. I fell on my, when I say I fell on my face, I fell on my face. I got caught up trying to do the business and manage the business, and it wasn't happening.
Okay, so you go from starting with the pad, your cushion, to immediate clients, to forever First Lady Michelle Obama, to the White House backing, to referrals, you're not even having to market, to rock bottom. Now, your rock bottom may not be somebody else's rock bottom, because I know my rock bottom was facing bankruptcy, didn't have no money, having to buy oodles of noodles and eat hot dogs, and couldn't even go to the doctor because I couldn't pay the bill, and they said they couldn't see me because I couldn't make any payments. That was what TracyMac. That wasn't even all the rock bottom, but that's just some of the highlights of the rock bottom.
Mine was probably worse. My rock bottom. What happened is that it was like in the nonprofit industry world. Once you lose funding, the first thing to go is your marketing. And so I was the marketer. I was a consultant. So it was like a trickle effect. Once a contract ended, it was like boom, boom, boom. It all happened like at once. It was so bad where I had to go to social services. I had to go to the welfare department. I drove up to the welfare department in a hoodie and in a BMW. I drove up there and I was at rock bottom. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't tell my family. And I got to the social services and they were like, ma'am, you make too much. Last year you made too much money. You got this business. And I went ham. I went off. I'm like, I'm a homeowner in this county. I'm a business owner. I pay taxes. I can't. And look, I was crying. Like I went outside to my car, my beautiful, beautiful midnight blue BMW, and somebody had stolen the emblem, the BMW emblem off the car. At that point, I lost it. I lost it.
An Amazon best-selling author with an ARC Book Club Incorporated 5-star rating and your self-discovery companion, TracyMac is setting positive change ablaze with her 3 incredible books. Looking for an interactive resource that reveals how to strategically overcome obstacles that can hinder you from developing your purpose and consistently enjoy the limitless benefits of living your best life? Well, grab your copy of TracyMac's book, The Book of Purpose, The You Testament. Through true stories, real-world examples, and thought-provoking questions and principles, you can make your best dreams a reality and achieve big goals that sustain peace in your life. Well, it's all about relationships, yours, mine, and ours. In her book, Relationships, Nothing But the Truth, TracyMac brings her signature style along with some of her most cherished relationships, talking about true experiences and many perspectives, openly and honestly, sharing intriguing stories from the provocative and controversial to the seemingly ordinary and outright funny. Do you lead? What if there was a resource specifically designed to sharpen thought systems and optimize wisdom for the keen mind of our C-suite professionals, progressive leaders, and social change agents? Well, there is. Thought Systems, How Progressive Professionals Nurture Their Wisdom. TracyMac has brilliantly created a comprehensive collection of wisdom principles for those who lead, ultimately benefiting those who choose to follow. Your solution has arrived. If you are ready to live an amazing life of change with sustainable results and measurable success, get your copy of 1 or all 3 of these awesome books where fine books are sold today to start your journey.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast.
And I hit rock bottom. I'm going to tell you exactly why I hit. I'm not only trying to manage the business and do the business. I wasn't trying to grow. I didn't want a big office. I didn't want a lot of staff. I try to do everything myself. And then the biggest thing was social media. I did not grasp social media. I didn't want to, because I could get people in the newspaper. I can get people in Forbes magazine. Well, nobody was doing that. I mean, that was starting to change. Nobody cared if you got an Ebony magazine. People were online looking at news. And I refused to change. I refused to do the switch. I refused to grow. I kept doing things in my own way, the old, outdated, traditional way. And I started falling. And that's basically what happened.
Wow. Girl, you are amazing. We ain't even got to Savvy Servant part yet. And you are amazing. You are blessing me right now because I see the similarities and I see the contrast. But most of all, I see your strength, because when you go from White House to social services, when you have to get back in that BMW with the newly stolen emblem, what happens? What happens, Jill?
Girl, had to go to the dollar store with nickels. I had a big old jar full of change. I was down to first you take out all quarters, and you take all the down. I was down to the nickels. I would go to the dollar store to get potato chips with the nickels. And I never forget, I was walking out I was so distraught. I was walking out of the social services office, and this lady, and I was so convicted. Something said, go back in there and apologize to that lady, because I went ham on her. I went back and apologized to her. And she said, you know what, ma'am? She said, we're your small business. Would you be interested in managing the contract for, we're putting Obamacare in this office. Would you be interested in applying, putting in a proposal to manage that? I was like, absolutely. Put it in and got it.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Jill. Wait a minute. I'm a good listener. I talk because of the podcast. Sometimes I get too talky. But being a good listener, I'm having to digest the extreme. God told you to go back in and apologize.
Yes.
And your apology led to them asking you to submit a proposal.
And not only that, she gave me food stamps too. She was like, I'm gonna give you some emergency food stamps. Yep. When I tell you $194, it was one of the best days of my life. I could eat.
So here I am thinking, a pack of hot dogs to last a family of 3 for a week, slicing them lengthwise, a case of ramen noodles, a box of cereal and some milk and some peanut butter and jelly and bread was what I had for the week. That was all I could afford. So here I am thinking, that was a cancer diagnosis, misdiagnosed ended up being. And here you are going to the dollar store with nickels. Baby, I like being lost for words. So you submit the proposal, and we're going to get to Savvy Servant. But I need people to know, when they come to the Savvy Servant and you call yourself a purposepreneur, you're bringing every last one of these experiences to the table and incorporating them in your scope of work as the subject matter expert for people starting a business, because you've been there and you've done that. So you submit the proposal. While I was waiting for the proposal, I went and applied for a job at let me go back just a few. I realized that I needed to get into social media. So Lamar and Ronnie was like, no, you should have just, Jill, you should have just grasped social media. I was like, okay, well, let me figure this thing out. So I said, well, let me somebody told me, why don't you take your, create some nonprofit tools, like some bylaws. And I think I had like 5 pieces of tools. And they said, put that together and put it in a package and, put it on Craigslist. So I put it on Craigslist. This was months before. That wasn't selling.
And so while I was waiting for the proposal to go through, I took a job. I applied for a job at Macy's, went to Macy's. And let me tell you something. I was at Macy's for one day, went on break, and I was sitting in I got an alert that my toolkit had sold on social media. I'm not on social media, on Craigslist. So I think I had it like for $67. That had sold on I got the check.
Let me explain. Black Women's World Podcast, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers worldwide. Craigslist was, because it's not, I don't know how it exists today or not. An electronic want ads. Is that a good way to explain what it is?
Yeah,
or classified.
That's exactly. Yep,
Classifieds.
Yep.
So you submit, you put your toolkit on the electronic classifieds as a product for nonprofits, and it's sold after you were on break at Macy's.
I was at Macy's. I was on break, and it sold. I think I had been at Macy's. I want to say I was at Macy's all week. I had worked all week, and I got my paycheck. I went to break, and I got the alert that the toolkit had sold. It had been on there for a while. It had sold. I made $67. Well, I got the paycheck for Macy's, and it was like $53 for the entire week. I was done. I was like, Macy's can go. I'm gone.
Like, do the math. Do the math. Right. So then I got That's a whole lot of nickels. That's a whole lot of nickels.
Whole lot of nickels. So I got the proposal. I ended up getting the proposal for the county, and so I was doing okay. I was surviving. It gave me enough money to eat. And then I got a phone call, and it was a life-changing phone call. It was a girl I went to grad school with. She called one night and she said, Jill, listen, I hadn't heard from her for years. She said, I am getting ready to take a job. I was offered a job in North Carolina to be the executive director of a $20 million nonprofit, but it's in disarray. She said, and I told them the only way I'll take the job is if I can bring a PR person to help clean it up. And she said, I'm wondering if you would be interested. Now, let me tell you something. The relationship that she and I had was horrible. And I thought about it. I was like, I don't know if I wanted to get caught back up with this chick. But my best friend said, do it. I said, let me forgive this chick. I forgave her. And I said, I'll be, open to coming down and, consulting with you from Maryland. Went down, met the
Wait,
board.
hold. You had an experience where an apology got you a proposal. Now you're telling me forgiveness gets you a job.
I went down. I came down to North Carolina. I said, I met in front of a 27-member board. They accepted my proposal. They accepted everything. And at this point, I had the county contract, and then I had this big contract down here. And that was enough to really get me make my business boom again. And I forget, I was traveling back and forth. My mother said, why don't you just get one of those little cheap apartments down in North Carolina? And I did that. I said, let me get a little apartment down here instead of paying for a hotel. And I would commute back and forth from North Carolina to Maryland, back and forth. And one day I came down here and I was like, why should I go back? My personal life just needed a change.
Yeah.
And I rented out my my condo. I rented out my condo and I came down to North Carolina. And and I think that's when I met you all. And I was
so wait a minute. All of this had happened, and we were in our Women on the Move group with Sharon Campbell and several other women, and many of them we're doing interviews with because of the wonderful, explosive relationships we had during that time and still have, because we've reconvened. So you walk, so it's like that old Wu-Tang song, kaboom, guess who stepped in the room? It was Jill. We had already formed and had been meeting. And we had kind of most of them knew each other, and I was the outsider, not
Okay.
negatively, but they had existing relationships before me.
Okay.
And I brought my cousin Javon into the group because of the benefits, and they allowed me to. So, but I still was not, familiar with the ladies, and I wasn't familiar. A lot of them were politically active in the area, social action, should I say, and with the city and state government. And Ms. Harris's extremely brilliant resume. And so when you came in, you just had this aura about you that I liked. And the other thing that I liked was you were the stranger at the table, but you just sat right there. In Miss Harris's words, when you get invited to the table, act like you belong there. And that's what I got from you. You sat to the left of me that day, and you had this DMV accent. And I was just impressed with your person. And then the things you began to talk about, because what you had experienced, Jill, a lot of what we needed at the table, you brought from what I didn't know, from painful experiences, because a lot of the women at that time did not have the social media experience. I had social media experience, but I was shifting into letting it be social and games and messing around into the business acumen to it. And you came in with those, and still, because you guide us in the area of social media and what's up. But you came in, and we had no idea you had that type of, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, just crazy circumstances that kept leading you. What did you feel when you walked in the room with us?
Well, this is the funny part, because when I had decided to, when I decided to just come on down to live in North Carolina, I said, okay, I had to change my business to North Carolina. So I went to the Women's Business Center to find out how to do North Carolina business taxes. So I went online and I saw that, and I went to the workshop, and I was on break. And this lady comes out the office, and she said, "Who are you? What is your name?" And I told her. She said, come in my office and talk to me. And she said, "What are you trying to do?" And I told her about my business. And she said, I need to hook you up with some ladies who's doing what you need to be a part of them. You need to grow. And it was Miss Harris. And I called. She said, call this lady, Sharon Campbell. And I called. And I said, "Hi." I said, somebody named Andrea Harris said to call. She said, "Andrea." She said, "Do you know who she is?" I was like, "Nope." She said, "Google her." And I did. And then she said, "Well, we having this." And I was blown away. I was like, nobody but him. And I went to the meeting, and I didn't know anybody. And that's how it started.
Wow. So you came in, Miss Harris had that match. She just throw you in the game and make you play. But what did you feel? And still, are we the savvy servant? Have we come into that yet?
No, because when I was with Women on the Move, I was Jay Morris Public Relations. But what happened is that I had repackaged my toolkit. My toolkit started selling more. And I was like, wait a minute, hold up. And then I realized I had more, because what was happening is that I would do public relations for nonprofits, learning from this $20 million nonprofit that I was doing. They were in disarray in the inside, internally, but I can make them look good on the outside. I mean, I can make you look real good. Somebody said, "No, your skill is more in the internal." And so that's when I said, let me change up everything. I rebranded everything, and I called myself the Savvy Servant, where now I started to do internal relations. And then at that point, which I then went full throttle on social media, at that point, it was a game changer. I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to have a staff. I could just do everything in front of my computer. It was a game changer for me. It was a game changer.
Yes.
So that's how the Savvy Servant came in 2015. The Savvy Servant, I changed over, instead of renewing from Maryland to North Carolina as J. Morris Public Relations. I just renewed my business as the Savvy Servant LLC.
Wow. So Jill, I could keep you all day. So when you say internal relations, people who may not understand what that means, tell us how, as the savvy servant, like you said, you can make people look good, but it's those internal relations, and you know that's got me tingling. How do you, as the savvy servant, benefit nonprofit organizations with their internal relations? And you also do help with startups. Let's get into the savvy servant.
Right. So the internal parts of a nonprofit, if a nonprofit is not getting the funding that they need, 9 times out of 10 it is a leadership problem. So that's the first thing I do is I look at your leadership, I look at your board, I look at the expertise, the infrastructure of your nonprofit, and so that's where existing nonprofits is where I get the big contracts. But as far as where the need is those people who have visions and just don't know how to get started. And so when I found out that that was a huge market, especially with people of color, we don't know how to start. We know how to start a for-profit business, but not a nonprofit, because there's a difference. There's a lot of compliance you have to go through. And so when I figured out that there was a market for visionaries that had ideas, that's when I started putting more focus on them. And so it is everything from positioning. The internal is positioning, everything from how to get funding, how to set up your programs, how to really develop a sustainable program, how to do your organizational part, your leadership. All of those things are the internal part of a nonprofit before you can get the PR to the public relations part of it. Because once you get to the public relations, your inside is you're literally shining from the inside out.
Yes, yes.
Of me having to lie.
And I love it. I love it. You're the bones. You're the skeleton of that, because everybody can put lipstick on a pig, you know, but that bones. And even though what we do is totally different, when I go to a company or business, I say I'm the heart and the mind. I help you with the heart and the mind of the whole business, the corporation, the small business, the family-owned business. We do that. So you got somebody like Jill that's helping you with the wallet and the skeleton and all that, because she said funding. So you need all of these components. But Jill, do you find, or has it been your experience that you find that Black people, because we're catering to Black women specifically, but SistaNista lovers as well, have a hard time asking for that help? Or do you see that has that changed?
Well, this is a thing. It's the older women. It's the older women who have a hard time asking. So my target audience is the 33 to 44-year-olds. It's that millennial age, because they're not afraid to jump out there. They're not afraid to ask for help. That's who my primary client is. That they are the ones who support my business. And so but I think a lot of it is that we're scared to ask for help because I'm in that age group. We got a lot of fear. We have a lot of fear.
And that fear is causing us to be stagnant. That fear is causing us not to grow. That fear is causing us to be broke. And when I mean broke, we started out talking about money too, but also broken in spirit, broken visions, broken dreams, all because we just don't ask. And when you're thinking about nonprofit organizations, and you said your ideal age group, the size of the organization, what else would you like to let our listening audience know? Because wait a minute, take this moment right here to tell us how we can contact you.
Okay, so you can contact me, www.thesavvyservant.com. But I do want to make a distinction because a lot of our Black people, they want to give and they want to start nonprofits, but they want to start public charities. What we overlook is private foundations. That's where you start building real wealth, private foundations. And this is something that your wealthy people do. And there's a misconception that you got to be wealthy to do it. And you don't. You just, as long as you have something to give, you can start a private foundation, whether it's in honor of a family member who was passed along, or if you just want to do a family foundation for yourself now. It is one of the best ways and sustainable ways to not only generate wealth, but also create a lasting legacy. So,
well, tell the listeners what is a private foundation. I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but some people just may not know. What is a private foundation?
Yes. So let me just say that. So a public charity, a public nonprofit organization, the difference between a private and a public is that a public, the best way to say this is a public relies on grant funding and individual donors. A private foundation relies on your wealth. Or let me take that back. It primarily is from your money. I'm not going to say wealth because I don't want to make you feel like you got to be wealthy. Right. But yes, right. So that's the difference. But the great thing about a private foundation is that even though you have to have a board, you can have family members on your board. You can contribute up to 30% of your income, whatever that income is, and that it is quote unquote tax avoidance. So, and so that is what you really want to, without our culture, we need to really focus on looking into private foundations, because that's how these, the McKinsey Scotts and the Bezos, this is how they're building wealth. This is how the wealthy.
Wait, we didn't even, we hit that name, McKinsey Scott. We know what that means. Talk about that for a minute.
So McKinsey Scott is the quote unquote ex-wife of Jeff Bezos. I think that's the owner of Amazon.
Yes.
So yes. So, so she got, her divorce settlement or whatever, and she is giving HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, like millions of dollars.
45 million in some cases.
45, 30, 20 million. And she's giving this wealth away. And so this is all money that has gone through their foundation, their private foundation. So so the fact that she can give that money away, that their income went into a private foundation, is an eye-opener to say, okay, how did they what they really did is, instead of paying taxes, they put their wealth in a private foundation, which is legal. And now she's making a legacy, because now she's giving it away to HBCUs. But those are the things we don't know about. We don't, in our community, we don't know about. And so, so that's one of the things that I'm really pushing. So I do public, how to start public charities, as well as private foundations. And so I want to push more to private foundations, because that's how you build generational wealth.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned toolkits. Is there some way where somebody can just get started if they may not want to, especially if they're older, or if they're younger but may not feel as aggressive yet to jump into private or public? Mm-hmm. Is there a way they can get those toolkits you mentioned earlier, that they can go and download something at a very low cost to at least start the ball rolling?
Yep. So the best thing that of course, go to my website, www.thesavvyservant.com. The best thing I would say is to get the self-guided, self-paced How to Start Your Nonprofit. Is only $97. I also have a toolkit with over 35 tools. That's like $97. That's a cheap. That's the most cost-effective way to start your nonprofit. I try to hit all cost points, just in case you feel like you don't want to do this thing. And so you won't have be worried about, you won't have to be worried about losing money or losing a lot of money. But I also do live classes. I do live classes every single month. And so the next one starts March 3rd, and that's $167. It comes with the tools. And so you got me live, just like this. And I teach you from idea to going to get that big federal government grant funding. So I teach you from A to Z. So yeah.
Jill Morris, the Savvy Servant. Let me tell you something. You all, this is a wealth of knowledge. The vast, extensive of her experience, her education, her experience, her business knowledge. She's bringing all of that to the table as the Savvy Servant, as that purposepreneur, as her bio so wonderfully said. And look what you're getting. And someone who cares, someone who has the passion and compassion, because She's so good at so many different areas. She could have jumped off into so many arenas and been successful because she's proven she has been. But someone to bring compassion and passion to your table, for your organization, for your nonprofit, look at what you're getting. You're getting a brilliant Black woman who is not afraid to give, because that's what she started talking about. The principle of giving, the law of reciprocity. I like to say, you won't always reap where you sow, but you will reap what you sow. Jill Morris,
Right.
you got a whole lot of reaping you about to get, because you just have sown
Thank you.
into these SistaNista lovers, and this SistaNista in so many ways. Thank you for sharing yourself
You're
with us.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for this.
having me.
You're welcome for this VIP access, for being a woman on the move, for being a woman of God, for allowing a woman, you allowed your faith to evolve. It's like I'm just summarizing everything. Your faith evolved. And some people think that when their faith evolves, that they quit God. No, you just learn God another way. You just take God into another realm and another level, and go from giving yourself into equating holiness with poverty to knowing that abundance is godliness with contentment.
Yes.
And that's some great game. You hear me?
Yes.
But
Yes,
anything,
it is.
Any other words would you like to say to our listeners?
I just, you know what? I have to say, you got to make faith moves. You got to, even if you're afraid, you have got to make faith moves. You've got to. That's the best way I can put it. If you're thinking about starting a business or a nonprofit or whatever you start, whatever you want to do, you got to jump out there. You might fail. It's possible. Yeah. But God says, it's not that, what he says is not that I pray that your faith, he's not that I don't pray that you don't fall. I pray that your faith fails you not. So you got to make a faith move. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jill. That is so profound. I'm not going to add to it, because that is enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, TracyMac.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And welcome. You're welcome to come again, baby.
Whatever you want me, we can do this.
But Black Women's World podcast listeners, my SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, get with Jill. Jill, the savvy servant. She's given her information. It will be in the down below in the information for this video cast, so you can see and connect with Jill. And listen, love somebody. If nothing else, love yourself enough to make those faith moves. Much love and peace. I'm TracyMac.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time, so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.